episode.
We're
Who's
insane.
I know. You both just got back from tropical vacations that I'm hugely jealous of.
Prince wasn't a vacation.
Well, that
That's
is true.
not a vacation.
That is
Mine was a true vacation.
okay. Well, how was you were in Jamaica? Yeah.
Yes, it was wonderful. The weather was perfect. The only thing that I have to complain about is that they did not believe in Diet Coke, and so I went Diet Coke free for a whole week.
What did you have? Massive
You went to
headache?
rehab instead of
I went
vacation.
to rehab. Yes, I went to rehab in Jamaica.
Oh my god! I think I would have like a horrible headache if I didn't.
I did, but honestly, it really only did for like one day, and then I was fine. I don't know. Maybe I'm not as addicted as I
Yeah.
thought.
Have you
right.
seen those memes where it's like I gave up Diet Coke and here's what happened? Absolutely nothing. I was
Nothing.
miserable.
Miserable?
Yes.
Yeah.
You.
Yes. Although I was at the beach, so I couldn't be too miserable. It was
Yeah.
fine.
I mean, totally fine. Trent,
Yeah.
how was Costa Rica?
It was really nice. It was much more jungle than I anticipated, but made for really cool, epic photos. Much different than like a normal beach
Yeah.
wedding. Yeah, it was
Amazing.
really fun.
I think I went to Costa Rica as a child, but I don't really.
I've never been. But wait, Kate, don't you have a wedding coming up? Like,
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. I'm super excited. We are headed to South Hall in Franklin, Tennessee on Friday morning.
that's this weekend. Oh,
I
love it
know.
there.
I'm excited. The bride or the couple would not like us to call it a wedding, so it's just an event. It's really cool. So they actually eloped to New York.
oh, cool.
Weirdly, she was on the Today Show because she like worked with the stylist to turn her mom's wedding gown into her elopement dress, and then did a party in St. Louis for family and friends, and it was incredible. It was actually like just really sweet, really intimate. And now this will be in Tennessee because they live in Nashville, and her family's from Paducah. So instead of having like one destination wedding, they brought the event to each of them.
Okay, I love that.
Which is great. So we'll head out this weekend. It's great. And it's a brunch wedding again. That's our second time this year doing a brunch wedding, which will be cool.
Sign me up for all the
Yeah.
things.
Truly, Eli's wedding was a couple of weekends ago, and it was just in Austin, and we just had the absolute best time because it was like we got to do everything you love to do on a trip, like experience great city, get to eat great food. We had some downtime, some planned activities, went to the wedding, partied our face off. Ashton, who we work with a lot for our weddings, was the DJ. He killed it. And then we got pizza and we're at home binge watching like TV by 9 o'clock. You know, like it was just the
Perfect.
best kind of day.
That sounds like the perfect like
Yeah.
timeline.
I mean, honestly, as a lady in her 40s, I think it's the best timeline.
A lady in her 40s.
An old
Just join that club too.
hag in her 40s. Yeah.
Yes,
Well,
please.
so yeah, this is kind of a good segue, though. I think in today's topic for our first episode, we wanted to talk about luxury. The word luxury in the wedding industry. And gosh, guys, I feel like this is such an overused word in our industry. Like everyone wants to be luxury and then magically thinks it's going to bring them all the money and all the clients and all of the couples.
And then we went and named our brand Landlocked Luxury.
I know. Woof. I mean, do we need to do an episode on what landlocked means to us too? But
Really? Do we need to
Maybe.
define both words and
I know. Well, I'm so curious. This is something I think we've like loosely talked about a long time ago, but I truly don't know if I know like what that means to you guys. What does luxury mean to you?
Yeah.
All right, you go first.
So I kind of use that term. Actually, I don't like using the term, but in terms of definition, I kind of use it in different ways. So I think luxury is more about an experience if you're referring to a client. But in reality, when I think if I have a luxury business, I use it more selfishly for myself, thinking I run my own business, I make my own schedule, I only take 15 weddings a year. So then it's a luxury for me for the rest of my life to plan out what I want to do, to be with my family, to make sure I don't have a wedding during dance recital weekend. So I think it can be used in like different ways. So I just kind of view it not just in terms of what it reflects to a client, but also to myself.
Well, and I would say I'm very similar. along those same lines is almost to a T, except that it's track meets and not dance recitals for me. But same concept. Like, what does my lifestyle look like? What can my business create to have a better lifestyle? And what does that look like to me? So I feel like we can all define luxury in a way that it works for our businesses. But I think to your point, Trent, of what it looks like from a client's perspective, that's where I feel like within the industry, it gets really muddy.
Yeah.
I mean, for lack of a better term, it gets muddy, it gets confusing. I think it's so overused. I don't think people have a clue what, I mean, it's such a broad spectrum of what people say is luxury. So, like, what really is luxury in the industry?
Yeah, and Kate, you've been like in the I typically refer it to as higher end weddings for
Uh-huh.
much longer than Emily and I. So
Correct.
I think a lot of people want to think there's like a dollar amount on it, but in I don't know. Is in your case, do you feel like that there's a tier?
Yeah, it's interesting. So I think like what I'm hearing from you guys is like there's two sides to this luxury coin, right? There's the luxury or the privilege of the fact that all three of us are building the life that we want to for our families, right? And I think for me, I wholeheartedly agree with that. Like sacrifices have come from that. We're not going to move into a bigger house anytime soon, and we don't always take the most luxury vacations unless there's a grandparent wanting to foot the bill. But we make every school play, and my husband coaches the teams, and I can take off if I need to get my hair cut. And like, I'm willing to do those. So for me, I that side. The other side, I think you guys hit the nail on the head with as well. It's like, how do we define that in terms of our couples and our clients? And to a certain extent, I do think we need to standardize as an industry on what luxury means. And I do think the easiest way to do that is probably with a dollar amount. I think for me, the way I categorize things is from a planner's perspective is you have the lowest level tier. I look at like the DIY couples, they're doing it in their backyard, they're eloping, they're handling everything themselves. Then for me, I think we have lovely weddings, which I hate. I think that's such a derogatory word because I can just hear somebody like, oh, that's lovely, and like patting me on the head, and it just gives me, but I don't know another
A
word.
lady in her 40s.
Yes.
Lovely.
Lovely. Then I think you have like sort of entry level luxury, right? They're affording some bells and whistles, but maybe not all of them. You have the luxury, you have ultra luxury, you have the iconic. And I really can't coin those phrases. I got a lot of those from Todd Fiskus at an Engage conference. Were either of you at that one? Was that Nemacolin?
Yeah,
I guess then. Okay. Yeah. So to me, that's how I would first start. And I think the dollar amounts that go with each of these depend regionally. So, here in the Midwest, gosh, I like entry level luxury is probably $100,000, which I hate to say that because it's so much money. I'm not writing $100,000 check for a wedding tomorrow. Like it's so much money, but the prices these days are so out of control. I actually am not going to say out of control because I think people in the wedding industry are finally actually starting to appropriately price things for the amount of time and effort goes into it. But they are just up probably 30% over the last 5 years from what I'm seeing. So I'm curious, like, do you think entry level luxury starts higher or lower than, let's use that 100K mark?
I think that 100K works well, but also I know once I kind of started getting into the luxury world, I know I educated myself a little bit more on the planning side, and I know people price themselves more per guest. So instead of seeing this $100,000 budget, that seems like a lot, but if you're inviting 350 people, that is not a lot of money to spread out for food, for bar, for
Everything.
tables, linens. Like that's not gonna look like luxury if you had $100,000 for 25 people. That
Very
would feel
That's
very
a
luxury.
great point. So I'm going to use my handy dandy calculator, $100,000 by over 200 guests, because that's a little bit closer to me. I think what I see as average, that's $500 a person. I'm going to assume that 30% of that is probably tied up into service charges, taxes, things like that. So you're looking at $350 a person at $100,000. I mean, I think it's hard to feed anyone for less than $120 a person. So that leaves you $230 left for your band, your photographer, your cinematographer, your invitations, your florals, your decor, your hair, your makeup, your transportation, everything. I mean, it's so much money. I mean, not most of us don't have six figures sitting in our bank account just to like write a check tomorrow. But at the same time, I think things add up quicker than we realize. One thing that's really curious too, and I probably not as much on the planner side of things, but I'm curious on the like photo, video, makeup, catering. Do you ever find weddings where they book luxury vendors for certain categories, let's say photos, because that's a huge piece, but then you're the most expensive piece of the wedding?
I would say that is like when you're transitioning categories, I think that's what happens. And I think it first happens with photographers. I would, in my experience, is that a lot of times, I mean, there's been many weddings where I very clearly was the most, the biggest piece of their budget. I mean, aside from, food, obviously is going to be food and drinks. But like they stretched and they were like, photography was important. We're willing to stretch the budget on photography. And then you kind of cross over into it. And then sometimes then you can end up being almost like too low on price too low to like, there's a weird, and like, I've heard it called like the pricing gap or the dead zone or something like that. And I don't even know that at this, like at that point, that's really what it is. I feel like it's more that you're trying to get into the next level. And it's like, you've been it's almost like, okay, I'm going to use an analogy. Like my kid is a junior in high school. He's about to start looking at colleges. He wants to be recruited for running. And it's like, kind of like you're crossing into like the high school level into like D1, like which level are you going? D1? Are you going to go D2? Are you going to go NAIA? This is all sports stuff, but like, that's a real thing in our house right now. Is like, what direction is that going to go? And I feel like that's kind of where we're like in the industry too. It's similar, is like, are you crossing over? And now, so then you're like top dog at your high school, right? Like, oh, I'm crushing it. And then you're going and you maybe make it to D1 and now everybody was top dog at their high school. You know what I mean? And so you're competing with a different level. And so like, I think as photographers specifically, that's what I can speak for, is that's been intimidating for me to figure out price point, because I don't know, like I start to second guess, like, am I even operating at that level? Can I charge that when I was more comfortable being top dog down here? You know what I mean? Like, am I peaking in high school or am I going to make it over that? Anyways.
I mean, my brain is swirling from things that you just said, because no, truly, because I've said this before and I'm going to memorialize it here. Like, there's not room for everybody to be ultra luxury or iconic or luxury. Like, I think you have to figure out what is right for you in your business. And especially being in St. Louis, like how many 7-figure weddings are happening in St. Louis annually? Now,
not enough for me to fill my calendar.
Right. Well, I mean, like, let's say what did Sam say at Landlock? 3 of the top 5 billionaires in the world live in St. Louis. You have the Bush family, the owner of Worldwide Technology, and the owner of eScripts. I'm pretty sure they are all 3 billionaires with a B. But I think he said there was hundreds and hundreds of millionaires in St. Louis, Kansas City, in Missouri alone. I think he looked up Missouri.
I would say in any big city, you're going to probably have that, right? Like,
yeah, but we're not Dallas, right? Like when you think of luxury weddings, you'll go to LA, you'll go to New York, you'll go to Dallas and Chicago, but you don't always think of St. Louis. And I think that brings us to why we're here. The other thing that sort of popped into my brain when you were talking about is like, it's so many different things to say that you're luxury. And honestly, if you say you're luxury, I'm going to automatically assume that you're not. I actually went and checked each of your Instagram profiles to make sure you don't say you're luxury before I offended anyone. But the biggest way to turn me as a planner off is to say luxury photographer or a luxury band or luxury. Just be luxury and let your reputation speak for yourself. You don't have to tell me.
Mic drop.
Yes.
Just be luxury. Just be it.
Episode over. No, but I think I'd love to know if you guys, and you don't have to share dollar amounts if you don't want to, but for me on the planning side, when I think of like what people are charging for luxury products. I think DIY couples are traditionally not using a planner. Then you get into the lovely and they're using a day of assistant. I'm not even going to call it coordinator. If you saw my story on this, you're not a coordinator, you're an assistant. And then I think you get into this entry level, and those people are probably charging a flat rate. Then you get into this entry level luxury, and I think you'll probably get planners who have some flat rate and some percentage based, if they're paying attention to anything I say, some percentage based packages. But when you get into true luxury and ultra luxury, everyone, any elite planner has to be charging on a percentage because it's the only way to fully protect you as the planner and protect the couple. And I'm curious, are there things like that within the photography world? Or I think you guys could maybe even speak a little bit to the videography world. Like I know what I see on the planner side of things, but I think that's where that dead zone comes in that you were talking about, Emily.
Yeah. Well, and just talking about the tiers of photography too, I think some people get stuck on, if they are in that realm where they are the highest paid vendor at the wedding, they think that that's not a good place to be. But my experience, I was there for several years. That helped me so much. It helped me grow because I had to work as hard as I could to create images that would reflect a higher end event than what I was actually shooting.
Yeah.
Now I can go to a wedding and it's sad, but I say it's kind of easy. I'm not putting centerpieces together, moving them on the table to make it look fuller. I'm not having to use a certain lens to compress everything together to make it feel like there's more there than there actually is. So, I know that's kind of sidetracked, but it's okay to be in that realm for a while, because it helps you grow and then you might kind of take off from there.
Don't you think that's an opportunity though to partner with vendors that are like-minded? Like if you
Absolutely.
get a florist or a planner or hair and makeup stylist, like, okay, this person's also wanting to level up. Let me get great shots of them and then I will share it with them. And then we have that free advertising we talk a lot about.
Absolutely.
I would
And
say,
I did that and book things off of doing that.
yeah. Oh, I would say that's probably where Trent and I collectively thrive in and how we've each grown our businesses, and we have very different businesses. And
Yeah.
I would say we're within the last probably like year or two, Trent, you're our like we were kind of like side and like neck and neck, like similar, and yours is taking a very different course than mine. And like fully like going with where like we're so locked in on what we want for our businesses, and
Yeah.
it's working so well for you, and then mine is very different. And I would say like I prefer to stay kind of straddling, and Trent is very much like he's going all in into head first into luxury all the way, and I
Right.
feel like more comfortable straddling because of where I'm at in my like what I need to accomplish for my version of luxury, like we talked about at the beginning, like in order to have that, hate to use the word balance, but in order to be able to have all the things that I want to be able to do with my lifestyle, I need to be able to be local. And I have to take on where I'm more of the like the higher budget, but maybe a lower budget wedding. Does that make sense? Like, and I'm comfortable there.
Yeah. Well, I think that, like, to get down to brass tacks with the way that each of the three of us, since we are friends, our role within our family unit is probably different for all three of us. So, like, right now, I don't have kids doing track meet that I need to be running around and making track meets on the weekend. So, for me to take a destination wedding, it works good because my husband is Mr. Mom in those situations, and I don't have that many of them. And as a planner, I don't take as many weddings as a photographer. But even just like you and Trent, like in your family unit, that role that you play, I think is slightly
Totally
different.
different.
Neither better or worse, just
Yeah, just
different.
totally different. Yes. And
Yeah.
so
And I think it's constantly going to change. Like,
it
I
totally
think Kate and I both have some younger kids, and then Emily has high school to elementary. She's got a
Mhm.
big range, and
Yeah.
every year these kids get more busy. I don't know how it happens, but
partly our fault.
yeah.
I know. I'm holding on to for dear life because I'm not pushing my kids into anything right
I'll
now,
do
and
it.
they're not
Once you
asking
do
for a
it,
ton.
once you do it,
But
you go back.
yeah. Okay, so back in 2022, I think, or 2023. Somebody asked me in an AMA, what for photographers do I think luxury clients would have to allocate for photo and video? And I'm curious
And you
if
blew up
You blew
Instagram.
up the internet. Yes, I
I
remember.
did, and I'm sure I pissed a lot of people off, and I'm sure people were like, "What is she talking about?"
People
But
are talking about money, but I think let's be real, that's the biggest issue is that people won't talk about money.
I mean, I will tell people I don't care if you know how much I charge. I will tell you I charge a base fee. I charge 20% of the overall budget, and my minimum we just increased this year to $61,000. So you have to have $305,000 for 200 guests to walk in the door and work with Kate and Company. Now, that being said, money is green, and there's times where I'm going to negotiate that up or down based off of where my business is at, and I'm not too good to cash the check on somebody who maybe is, most of my clients are not ideal clients. I think 40 to 50% of my clients are my ideal clients, and 50% of my clients are cash the check clients. So I'm not too big to admit that, because no one is hiring me. They're hiring me for me. And so if my competitor wants to hear this and underbid me, then that says a lot more about them than it does about me. So
Agreed. And I think that goes across the board on all industries.
100%.
All categories within the industry.
So it's interesting. I had in this 2022-2023 photographers at $30,000 plus. And I think I probably can't get a master level photographer these days. I'm talking the Corbins of the world, the Jose's of the world. And I have no idea because I haven't bid them out in a while, but probably anything less than $50,000.
I was about to say, I bet that's way higher now. Yeah.
I think it's almost double.
Yeah.
Right now, but tenured photographers, like that's somebody, in our marketplace, I think of the Mikes of the world and like somebody like that. I had 18 to 22, and I do think that that's gone up, but I don't think it's doubled like the master photographers.
Would you say that level for photographer, like, I feel like that's harder to fluctuate? Like it almost kind of stays there, especially in a Midwest market when there's, that would be my guess. I don't know.
I think it's gotten the range there has gotten wider. So I had like a $4,000 range there, 18 to 22. I think I could get a tenured photographer, some as low at 20, and some are going to be 30, 35, know?
Yeah.
So I think that range, we just have a lot more talent in that pool at various levels of experience. Then I think you're going to get the emerging photographers where I had somewhere between 9 and 12. And again, I think this has gone up. I think it's probably 12 to 17, somewhere in there. And then below 12, I would probably consider somebody more freshman, lovely. But I want you to tell me where I'm wrong, because I live in this totally like out of reality. A lot of my clients are not necessarily like the photographers I'm working with aren't necessarily like reality based. So
it's so hard because especially I feel like as you're building on the tiers, right? I feel like the gaps can be, or the range can be so big, because like a new photographer that's been doing this for a year has no business charging $10,000.
I totally agree.
You know what I mean? But they're technically in that category, right? Of the like
freshman.
So I feel like, the freshmen. So like, it's hard because that range is so big. And then you kind of like close the gap a little bit, but then the range is big again. So it's really,
that is true. The front and the back side of the range is huge.
And so like from a business perspective, like as a photographer trying to like, scale your business and grow, it is so hard to figure out how to price yourself based on your experience and your client, like all of that, because the range is so big. And I think that's where we end up in the dead zone, or think we are, but maybe we're not. You know what I mean? Like it can be so tricky. So like, while these like chunks are helpful, I think it's also really, really hard, because I don't even know where I'd put myself in that. I mean, like, you know what I mean?
Well,
like,
right. And your experience level might put you in one category, but your pricing may put you in another. And that gets back to like, you have to do what's right for your family. So just because Kate or anybody says, oh, a tenured photographer should charge X, doesn't mean that that's going to work in your marketplace or with your lifestyle or for your family. And we all have to make business decisions. Nobody on this platform, I think I speak for all three of us, is doing this for fun. Our families all need this to put food on the table. And so I think we're all pretty realist in terms of like, we're going to take a client if it's the right fit, whether or not they're our ideal client.
Well,
Yeah.
and then there's also seasons where, sorry, I keep talking over you, Trent. I'm so sorry.
Oh, no, you're fine.
Normal of me.
We love to talk about this. So.
I was gonna say, like, I look at over the 10 years and like that I've been a wedding photographer, and like I look at like 2 years ago was probably my best year and made like more money than I ever thought I'd make as a wedding photographer. But then now I'm making like half because of having to scale back on the amount of weddings I can even take. So I wasn't able to like grow it enough in the short amount of time, like change my pricing enough, because it would have been too much of a leap, right? To cut back that many weddings that I needed to, but then offset it with pricing myself that way. I would have priced myself out. I wouldn't have had any weddings based on,
Right.
you know what I mean? Because like that's the other thing is like, you can't just all of a sudden like, oh, well, tomorrow I hit 10 years, so now I can charge $30,000. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't work that way. At least it hasn't for me.
And I think the reason, like, whenever Kate posted that, that was kind of the beginning of our friendship and connection. That was like really the beginning. And she actually messaged me and said, I want to know what level you fit
I think
into.
you messaged me too, yeah.
And I was thinking, this is a really good question for, I think, anyone in the wedding industry, because no one wants to talk about money. No, everyone feels like they can't share with what they want. And I kind of believed that 4 years ago. But now I have learned the more that we share with each other, the more we're all going to be successful. So whenever you asked me that, I was charging below your bottom one, but I was also thinking, I've been doing this for 10, 15 years now. I know I can give an exceptional experience. All of my bookings are referral based. I am not doing marketing. So why am I not like in one of these realms?
Yeah.
So it's just a question for me to figure out why I'm not there.
Why am I not?
But now
Yeah. Agreed.
Right, or whether I'm right or wrong about any of this, at least it's food for thought to think about. How does somebody who does consider themselves a luxury planner perceive a photographer? And the same goes for hair and makeup stylists or transportation companies or bands. Like, how do we perceive financially, which we've spent a lot of time talking about, and I don't want to miss out on what's the other side of this particular coin, because it isn't just about how much you charge, but it's also about the experience, I think is a good word, that you provide your clients. So I'm curious what a luxury experience means for you guys. So I will start. A luxury experience is not emailing me through a CRM. I want to jump off of a bridge.
If there were a hill that Kate could die on, that would be the hill.
Yes. I have this person, we'll call them Pat, that I'm emailing from a venue who it's all through a CRM. And I politely asked Pat, and Pat is specifically non-gender specific because I don't want anyone to figure out who this is, if we could email outside of their CRM. And Pat told me only if we keep all of our correspondence to one thread. Like, that is such a nightmare to track all of the details on that you might confirm with a venue, a catering, a bar, without being able to put in a subject, without being able to see who is copied, and now keeping it to one thread. And Pat should learn to answer the emails that are the questions that are asked of them, instead of answering 2 questions and skipping 3. And then I have to go back and ask about the last 3, and the thread is a mess. So don't email me through a CRM.
No.
Mic drop again. Goodbye. Podcast over. Death to him.
Enough with the CRM.
No, I'm curious, what does a luxury experience look like for you guys?
Trent, you start.
I think kind of going to that, I think availability to your clients is really crucial. I would say I'm not someone who always can email you back within like the 24 or 48 hour time frame, but sometimes if I see something and it probably should be responded to quickly, I'll email you back within the hour. If I was shooting 40 weddings, there's no way in the world I could ever do that. But with 15 clients, and then obviously I have other photography jobs that I do besides just the 15 weddings, I am able to be available. I am able to ask or to answer questions that might not be exactly
Your job description.
pertaining to a photography, but they want my opinion. I'm happily going to give it to them. Just because I feel like being well-rounded in the wedding world is also part of being in this. I can't just know about photography or else I'm not going to do my job well on a wedding day. It's all about a team. Being a team player, I also think is crucial in the luxury wedding world because we all have to work together to create this experience for them to go well. So
I would
timelines.
say to jump in and tag team that, Trent, not that you asked, but I'm gonna. I think that is, if I had to boil it down to one thing that would, like, if you had to define luxury experience from a photographer, like, not even just specifically a photographer, is like that collaboration mindset and the fact that you all have the same client. Like, every single person has the same client. That couple, their wedding is everybody's collective client, right? Like, so you should all, everybody has the same goal. We all have the same goal. And so that luxury experience is, how do we all make sure that this is the best day of their lives? And not in a cheesy way, in a like, they hired us to do this and we're not going to just do it. We're going to blow it out of the park every time.
Yeah.
And I think that
they're paying a premium price for that. So
exactly. And that's what you're paying for, is that you're not just hiring us to come and show up and do our job, right? Like, that's a given. That should be the standard.
I think what you're saying is a little bit circular, and sometimes people in this industry, doesn't matter what your vertical is within this industry, get stuck on what comes first, you know, the chicken or the egg. So for me as a planner, like, to Trent's point, I want to be available for my client, but I can't do 40 weddings a year and be available to 40 different clients. But when can I make that switch? Like, I can't tomorrow raise my prices enough to only take 15 weddings or 10 weddings or whatever is your particular goal number, still make the same amount of revenues. I think as you transition, you almost have to have different processes for different levels of clients, even though the client may not know that they're a luxury client or a lovely client, which needs another word. So when you're working, if you're a stationer or you're a photographer and you're working without a planner, or let's say you're working with a really not a great planner, fire off your questionnaires from your CRM. Let the emails live there if it makes your life easier. But it's okay to have the subset of 5 clients that are super luxury or that you want to have a different experience, and they don't have to follow those same workflows. You can have a second workflow for those particular clients.
I think that is so valuable, because I think we've been taught, I don't know, at least like education I've done throughout the years as a photographer is like, you do all of these things to attract your ideal client, right? And if you do it and you keep building on that, then you'll get that ideal client. And to your point, like, you get to that level where you're not going to have every client be your ideal client or every wedding be the first wedding.
It's
and
not
like,
real to expect that they are.
No. And so, like, I remember early in my business, I mean, I was gifting, I was doing all this, and like, I look at that and I'm like, my business couldn't afford what I was doing.
Truly.
Like, I shouldn't have been doing it. And I don't know that it really paid off in the way now where my business is at now. I'm like, okay, especially after just reading Unreasonable Hospitality, I'm like, okay, what can I finesse? What can I do to surprise and delight, as Julian Lever likes to say, or maybe he wasn't the one that came up with it, but you know, like, I think it's in that book too. But like, all these other things, I'm like, okay, I can reevaluate now where I'm at and the price point I'm charging. But like, I think when you're at different levels is being really smart about your numbers. And then to your point, Kate, is like, not every client has to be on a system side of things treated equally. Does that make sense? Like, that might be a mean way to say it, but like, on the back end system side, it's a business. Like, be smart. I don't know.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's not a cookie cutter way to explain this. Every business is different. Everyone's needs are different. Every client is different. So just like with a wedding, there's no cookie cutter like weddings anymore, especially in the higher end realm. Everyone wants something a little bit different. Your clients may be very social or very out on social media. Some of them may not have any social media at all. Like, you just have to really cater specifically to those, which I think goes along with, you know, you're kind of tailoring your services to each client. You can do that whenever you have smaller number of clientele, but with 40, you have to have a streamlined process. So there's not an overnight like situation that's going to happen. It's got to make small little tweaks. And I did it over 2 to 3 years, and I am seeing all of that work now pay off.
And I am a witness to that. I've watched it. Kate and I both. I mean, we've watched it and watched the tweaks and the little, I mean, it's like that 1% better here and there. You know what I mean? And then like 3 years later, it's paying off tenfold. Right. And so I think and like for me, I'm like, I'm willing to take a pay cut essentially to, live in my luxury of being able to do the things I need to do. And then I'll be able to, that'll uptake again and it will pay off in a different way. Right. I'm also taking the time now to invest in different things to, like on the back end of my business that maybe I've been putting off that need to be like brushed up and rethink things and whatever. Anyways. We're really going long-winded on this.
I was just going to say, I'm going to wrap us up here. And I think as our farewell, I think we should share with our listeners, I'm doing this off the cuff, nobody prepped for it. What is one luxury thing you think they can do today that will help their business?
Goodness. Emily, you get to go first this time.
Oh, crap. I was about to say Trent could go first.
You've said that 3 or 4 times
I know, so
this episode.
I know. Ugh. One thing today. Okay. I don't know if it's really a tip day. Trent? Okay, go.
Okay. So this is not going to be, this may not be a client-facing thing, but your next wedding, whatever vendor realm you are, go into that wedding not thinking, I am the hair and makeup artist. I am the baker. You go and I am on the wedding team. So make sure you do your specific jobs exceptionally, but figure out, is there anything that you see that you could help with without being asked or without having to ask if you can help them? Go out of your way. Those little things people are going to notice. It could be as simple as straightening chairs, picking up trash, little things that you might think aren't your job. Those little things go above and beyond to make you a team player, which I think we all agree is.
You're not going to believe me, but I was literally going to say something very similar. I'm not just saying that. I really was. But go, Kate. You go next.
Okay, so totally different. This is, I think, works really well for planners specifically, but that's my realm. You typically have all of your clients' guest lists. Take a look at the address of their attendees and those in the highest dollar zip codes. Make sure you touch their table. Walk over to their table, say, hello, my name is Kate. I'm the wedding planner. Is there anything I can do to make your evening better? That costs you nothing but a little bit of time. But if you can touch those tables, the highest net worth individuals that are at the wedding, it will help your business become luxury in the long run because those individuals will remember you and your name. And if you're an AI user, a little bit of Chat GPT will help you identify who those are very easily. Stole this from my friend Jana Toby of Toby Events, but I think it's a genius way to help pivot your event into the luxury market, and it's something you can start at your next wedding this weekend.
Okay, along that same line and kind of merging the two of those together, I think no matter what vein of the industry you're in, I think that's what it comes down to, is that human connection. You don't know who you're influencing or serving that knows someone that can recommend, you know what I mean? You don't know that, what is it, the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon or whatever? Is it 7? Whatever. So go into a wedding with that like mentality of killing everyone with kindness, no matter what. And I think that goes the longest way. And like, just honestly going above and beyond in any way that you can. That's not like an actionable, like today, but I think in all 3 of our businesses, I think that's probably made the biggest impact long-term consistently, is showing up intentionally in a like team player mentality and like serving everyone in that room in a genuine way, and not in a cheesy, like, oh, I love stories. That's not me. It's like, genuinely, I love people and I want you to be like, feel like this is an amazing day.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Well, I think we talked not linear as suspected. I think we were relatively PG today. Like, we did.
And guys, we went G.
I think we were. There were no curse words today, so that is awesome.
Wow.
I know. All right, guys. Well, I will see you later and see everyone else in the next episode.
Go team.
Bye.